Hi and welcome to another narration, presented by yours truly, Cryptid's Roost. Let's just take a moment's silence for all the haters, Karens and the trolls. That's enough. Be sure to check out the blooper reel at the end of the video, which is then followed by the end screen, where you will find more videos listed. So grab your coffee, sit back and enjoy the show. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not. Vermin's Nest. This awesome story is written by Corpse Child. Be sure to check out Corpse's new book, Damned Whispers. It is available both as a Kindle ebook and also in paperback. 13 chilling anecdotes, 13 reasons that you'll never sleep again. The Amazon link to that will also be listed below in the description. Daddies, mummies, brothers, sisters, it is a new era and a new age. Every new age brings something new. There's a new site that gives you all your quality jackets, joggers, shoes, bags, hoodies and lots more. Metaphysik.com. Check them out today and I bet you won't regret patronising with them, and you will definitely demand more. It's Metaphysik today, Metaphysik tomorrow, and Metaphysik forever. 100% perfection. Remember to use the code XYZ for a 10% discount. I can hear them right now, scuttling and scampering about. I can hear them whispering, debating on who will get the first bite, on which parts of me they'll want to eat first. I can hear them from under me, under my bed. The floor and the walls of my house are thin, making it that much easier for me to clearly make out what they say.
Take him while he sleeps. So tasty, so peaceful. No, now. Take him now.
Who else could they possibly mean? They've already taken Pamela when I brought her over to visit, along with my roommate, Connor. They took them last night, as well as my neighbours, and even their puppy before them. I'm the only one left. I don't know who they are, or exactly how long they've been here, nesting in the basement of this house, though I'd make it a good bet to say they've been here quite a while, judging by the rumours that surrounded this place. God, I should have listened. It was only about a month and a half ago that I'd started looking for a small place to move into from my college dorm. I'd been searching for weeks, trying to find a cheap little apartment or something. Unfortunately, even those seemed to be a bit too much for me to be able to afford. That was when a stroke of luck hit me when I found someone on Facebook who was, ironically enough, also moving into a new place from college and was reaching out for a roommate to split the bills and rent of a small house with. What's more was that it was only a 30-minute drive from the college and was in my old hometown of Weeping Willow, North Carolina. I guess it is worth mentioning that Old Willow, as Granny always used to call it, was always kinda notorious for this, and that old ghost story about this and that old place all through the town. Hell, I remember how me and my buddies used to dare each other just to eat one of the apples from the oak tree in the middle of the plaza downtown, thinking we'd get possessed or something like that. Even back then though, I knew that none of that was real. Just stories to spook the hell out of each other on the playground, right? Well, anyway, I of course took him up on the offer. The place was listed as a semi-decent price and therefore only happened to be responsible for half of it. I wouldn't end up in a financial bind because of it. I reached out to him via Messenger, letting him know that I was interested in his offer, and asked him where and when he'd like to meet up. We met up the next afternoon after class at the old diner that surprisingly was still around and hadn't moved from its spot across from the shopping mall on Garrett Street, and from there me and Connor basically became like friends. He always seemed really cool, having many of the same interests I did, as well as being able to introduce me to a number of new interests. Mostly new shows and or movies I wasn't familiar with. He and I helped each other to secure the deed of the house, splitting half of the down payment. It was later that week that we finally see the house. Admittedly, at the time, I remember just how odd it seemed to me when I saw it. Not even necessarily a bad feeling or anything, but more so familiar. Like maybe I'd seen or heard about it before. I couldn't place what it was that made it so familiar though. It was a small one-storey house with a wooden palleted roof in place of a typical shingled one. The paint, which might have been baby blue at one time, either that or aqua, was now faded and worn down so far that only the dark aged wood underneath was visible, save for a few faded splotches here and there. Around the perimeter was a chain link fence that was warped and marred with rust. In short, the place might as well have had a sign out front saying something like, "Abandon hope, ye who enter." But this wasn't going to keep us from happily sinking money into it. And just a week and a half later, we finally moved in. Much like the outside, it was more or less just as decrepit and bleak on the inside as well. We couldn't take 2 steps without hearing the floorboards creak and feel like they'd give from beneath at any moment. Between that and the cobwebs strung out just about everywhere, and you can kinda see what kind of place we were dealing with here. Me and Connor, however, considered it a fixer-upper and decided this would be something we'd make work, hook or by crook. Oh, for the first month or so, everything was just fine. We were even able to start fixing up the place to make it a bit more livable, and do so without either of us risking bankruptcy. Nothing at all seemed all that out of the ordinary, at least not with the house itself. With the neighbours though, well, that was a bit of a different story, in that they all seemed very skittish around me and or Connor. This didn't seem to bother him much. Me on the other hand, couldn't for whatever reason shake the uneasy feeling their anxious stares instilled in me. I always tried to be polite, even trying to make small talk with them, something I never used to do with people, much less complete strangers. Still, they looked at me almost like I was diseased or something. I even distinctly recall spotting a few of them actually crossing themselves. Talk about overkill. I say that, but I guess they were right, weren't they? It wasn't long after that we started hearing scratching noises at night time. They always started out faint and then would gradually get louder and louder as the time would pass in the night. The first night it happened, I told Connor, who apparently was oblivious to it. He told me that he didn't hear anything, while adding this kind of thing could kind of be expected when moving into a new house, or rather an old house like this one, new to us, and that it was just another thing to get used to. Well, I figured that made sense, and over the next few days I sort of learned to get used to it. But then I started hearing the voices. The first night I heard it, I couldn't tell what it was they were saying, so I wrote that off too, figuring maybe Connor left the TV on or something. After about a week and a half of hearing them, however, that was when I decided to politely of course, approached Connor about it. When I did though, he swore up and down that he hadn't even been watching the TV at night, claiming that he'd always been in bed at 9:30. I told him about the voices I kept hearing, and he told me that again it was probably just the excitement getting to me or something. I was a little less convinced this time around, but still decided not to press him further. That night, hearing them again, I grabbed a flashlight and headed down to the basement and decided to investigate for myself. When I opened the hatch leading under the house, however, nobody was there. I went in and looked all around. Nothing. Just cobwebs and old wooden beams that looked like they were ready at any moment to collapse under their own weight throughout. At least until I got to the very back of the area, right under around where my bedroom would be, where I found what looked like a large bed of I don't even know what. It was pitch black or dark brown and shiny. What in the hell? What is this stuff? I used a nearby sliver of chipped off wood from one of the beams to scrape up a bit of it. It was soft, but thick and sticky, and smelled awful, like a road-killed carcass. The next day, after I got home from class, I immediately told Connor about it, showing him the bit of gunk from the night before. "What is this?" he asked, looking at me both confused and disgusted. I shrugged. I don't know. I just found a large mass of it in the basement. He kept looking at me like I was a weirdo. "Here, I'll show you." I took him down to the basement. He and I both had to hold our breaths to keep from hurling right then and there from the smell, which was somehow even worse than last night. I showed him where I'd seen the stuff, which was when he gagged. It was still there, the circle of whatever the stuff was. "God, that smells horrible," Connor exclaimed, covering his nose with his shirt. "We gotta get rid of this crap." "How? We don't even know what it is. What if it's toxic or something?" "Well, I can't take the smell anymore. That's what's toxic." With that, we promptly rushed out from beneath the house and went back to the living room. After debating for about half an hour, we finally agreed to have the landlord and poison control come out the next day to look at it and see about how to get rid of it. That night was the first time I heard more clearly what the voices under the bed were actually saying. They spoke English, but their words were broken, mostly just repeating the same few words over and over again.
Feed. Must feed. Eat. Juicy meat. Take now.
It was creepy as all hell, and I imagined a group of cannibals were under my bed. What was even stranger was their actual voices. The way I could describe it is that they seemed to have some sort of frantic, disjointed, high-pitched buzz to them, almost like an insect or something. Needless to say, sleep was out of the cards for me that night. The next morning, me and Connor were awakened by a knock at the door. It was one of our neighbours living 2 houses down to the right of us, the Roddencrofts. They asked us if we'd seen their puppy, who'd apparently ran out of the house late last night and was last seen heading in our direction. I noticed they seemed rather skittish while telling us this, constantly darting their eyes around, never holding consistent eye contact, and also looking rather stiff. In other words, it wasn't hard to tell they really didn't want to be there at our house. Of course, we told them we had no idea, but that we'd be more than happy to keep an eye out for them. Connor was even about to volunteer to help print them off some missing posters, when they just plastered on half-arsed poker smiles and cut him off, blurting out, "Thank you for your time, sorry for bothering you," before hurrying away back to their house. For a moment after that, me and Connor just stood there, looking confused at each other, before shrugging and finishing getting ready for the day. All through classes that day, I was unable to concentrate on anything except for their voices from the past night. That, plus the pit of gunk, and now the incident with the neighbour's dog. All my mental stamina ended up going into trying to connect the dots. On my way home, I got a text from Connor saying that he'd stepped out and was on his way to meet with the landlord about the basement. As soon as I got home, I opened the front door and was hit with a horrible smell. I couldn't tell what it was at first. Part of me thought maybe it was the smell of the gunk having travelled up from under the house. I proved this to not be the case, however, when I took a whiff of the sample we planned to show the landlord. No, this was a sharper odour, like something had just died. Finally, I went down and opened up the door leading under the house. I was right about one thing. Whatever the smell was, it definitely came from down there and had travelled up to the house. Covering my face with my hand to keep from dumping my stomach all over the place, I clicked on the flashlight on my phone and started heading towards the back of the basement where the stench was strongest. What I saw next made my heart abruptly stop. There, coated in the gunk, was what remained of a small, light, yellow-furred puppy. God, it was horrible. It looked like the poor thing had been mauled by a wolverine, with large chunks, each the size of wiffle balls, dug out all over its body, as well as both of its ears and an eye missing. I was 2 seconds away from losing the little control I had over my stomach when I heard what sounded like skittering from up ahead. Looking up, I could see 6 tiny dots stabbed through the darkness in front of me, rapidly getting closer and closer. This caused me to drop my phone and frantically scrambled towards the door leading back into the living room. As soon as I'd made it back out, I latched the hatch and sat on it. I could feel it banging and pushing more and more violently from beneath me. I was sure that at any moment, whatever they were on the other side was somehow going to end up bashing their way through the hatch, hurling me off of it. Luckily for me, staying frozen in a fetal position for about 10 minutes on top of the hatch, everything went quiet and still again. Another 5 minutes passed before Connor and the landlord finally arrived. When they found me, a pale, quivering pulp on top of the hatch leading under the house, they were both, naturally, confused as all hell. When they asked what happened, all I could do was blabber like a moron. "Don't go in there! Something's down there! Don't go down there!" over and over again. "What? What's down there?" Connor asked, no doubt figuring I'd finally lost my damn mind. I was still too shocked to even form a decent sentence. I don't know." "Calm down, pal," chimed the landlord. "Here, let's get you some water." As they slowly managed to work me out of my paralysis from on top of the hatch, I was able to get one more broken phrase out from my babbling. "The dog torn apart." I began to feel dizzy, lightheaded, and like I'd drop faint, if not dead of a heart attack, at any instant. After guiding me over to the sofa and getting me to somewhat calm down, at least enough to breathe normally, they again asked me what it was I saw down there. I told them everything, or at least everything I could make out: the dog, the gunk, those eyes, everything. I didn't mention the voices I'd been hearing. For one thing, I guess I didn't see any real connection at the time. Even if I had, however, I figured I was pushing my luck already with what I was telling them to not try and have my ass committed. My suspicion as far as that went was somewhat apparent with Connor, who cocked an eyebrow and replied, "You serious?" "Yes, I'm not making any of this up." Glancing over to the landlord, I could see that his face seemed more concentrated, as if trying to actually analyse what I was saying. As if maybe he actually believed me, and maybe even knew something. If he did know something though, he didn't let on, and he just said that what I said was interesting, but unlikely that anyone could be in the basement, given how long the place had sat abandoned before we bought it. He said that he'd personally checked the whole place from top to bottom when he rented the house to us, and so it couldn't be squatters. He did say that the place had a thing though for rats to scamper about, especially in the basement where it was dark. Rats? You screwing with me here, right? I can tell you right now, it wasn't no damn rats that did that to that puppy. My heart began racing again. He just shrugged. "That's the best theory I got, pal." I could still see his face had that nervous look plastered on as he tried to push this load of crap at me. "Look," he started, obviously now just trying to shut me up about it all. "I'll have pest control come down here and see what they can find, okay?" I wanted to keep pushing further to figure out what, as well as why, details were being kept from us, but my still present state of confused dread and Connor telling me to relax and get a grip made me think better of it for the present. While the landlord was on the phone with pest control, I just sat there, trembling. Almost involuntarily, my mind started remembering the events from before. The scurrying, the chattering voices. That's when I started remembering more of what the voices had said. Something about juicy meat. Is that what was going on last night? They, whatever they are, were eating the puppy. About 15 minutes later he came back and told me and Connor that pest control was on the way, and that we should consider finding someplace else to crash until they were done. "How long should it take?" I asked. "Not long, but they said there's a chance they'll have to fumigate the place, which could take anywhere from 36 to 48 hours for them to deem the place safe to come back again." I looked at Connor, who looked annoyed, but shrugged and said, "Alright." The next half hour was spent packing a couple of overnight bags and calling one of my buds from college to see if I could bunker his place until the house was ready again. I asked Connor if he had a place to stay, to which he replied that he knew of a cheap motel he could stay in for a while. That night at my friend's house, I was flipping through the channels when a breaking news broadcast caught my attention.
"Couple found dead in home."
Now normally I'd have kept going, but I saw that the house they were filming looked very familiar. It wasn't until they read the address that it hit me. That was the Roddencroft's house. I was in shock again.
At approximately 9:30 p.m, authorities were alerted to a disturbance by neighbours who allegedly heard screaming from their house. Upon arriving, police found the victims, 39-year-old Caitlin Bex Roddencroft and her husband, 42-year-old James Hubert Roddencroft, sprawled out on their living room floor with heavy lacerations all over their bodies, as well as entrails having been removed viciously.
They then showed images of the crime scene, and I almost threw up. There on the screen, in one giant pool of blood, was my neighbours. They looked like they just went through a paper shredder. Despite the heavy blurring of the images on the screen, I could still clearly see the dark red gashes covering the both of them from top to bottom, and I saw the blood scattered erratically all across the surrounding area. The report went on to detail that they found them with their stomachs ripped open and hollowed out. I couldn't stand to watch anymore, so I turned the TV off and immediately texted Connor and asked him if he'd seen the news. I told him about what I'd seen, and he'd said we need to install a security system when we get to go home again. Now, I've never really trusted those things. All they do is beep at every little thing that sets it off by motion detection, even just small animals racing by. Plus, they were expensive as hell. Well, you got any better ideas? No. Then I got to thinking, and I remembered that my dad left me with his old Winchester rifle and an old Colt .45 revolver before he died last year. I told this to Connor and told him I'd get it from my old family home, now owned by my aunt and uncle. He agreed, though he said he'd still feel better with an actual security system. After I got the guns from my aunt's place, I got the text from the fumigators saying that the place was safe to come back. When I got back, I found Connor talking to the landlord. "Everything all clear?" I asked the landlord. He turned to me, still looking like he was afraid or anxious of something. Guilt? And told me that we could come back into the house, but to stay out of the basement. I looked at him, confused. Why? What the hell was down there? "Look," he sighed, "just keep out from under there for a few days at least, okay? Whatever it was down there, they told me that it required some real strong stuff to get rid of it. Stuff that tends to take a bit to wear off and ain't good to breathe." I relented at that. It made sense, but something about the way he was saying it gave me the feeling that it wasn't actually the truth, or at least not all of it. Finally, he left me and Connor have the house back. All I was able to be concerned with, however, was the news report, and of course that would be the first thing I'd try to talk to him about. "I wonder who hated them so much that they had to go and do that," Connor said. "Who?" I replied. "More like what?" He cocked his eyebrow at me. "What do you mean?" "Come on, you saw the footage, right? You really think a person did that?" "Okay, well, what's your theory, detective?" Unfortunately, he had me there. Well, I wasn't sure what it was though. Something was telling me that it had something to do with whatever happened to that puppy in the basement. That night I'd hear them again, chattering and bickering.
"Feed. Must feed. Eat."
Unsurprisingly, this kept me on high alert all night. During this, another thought also managed to worm its way into my panicked brain. These things, whatever they were, could they have been the ones to rip the Roddencrofts apart like that? Not to mention before that, with the puppy. What the hell even are they? The next morning, having gotten no sleep whatsoever, I decided to skip the early bird classes and spend some time at the local cafe, searching both for more articles pertaining to the Roddencrofts murders, as well as possibly another place to stay. That was how I ran into Pamela. She was in the process of fixing another cappuccino, the 10th one by then, when she remarked, "Tough on you, huh?" I looked at her, confused. "Your glasses," she said, gesturing to my laptop. Must be going rough on you with all them cappuccinos you keep knocking back. I chuckled dryly. Oh, no, this isn't school stuff. Ah, she said, sliding the coffee to me. Well, something's got to be keeping you up. You look like you've been burning some kind of candle at both ends. You pulling a lot of doubles at work or something? No. You a partier? She winked before remarking, maybe some pretty girl's been keeping you busy? I chuckled again before replying, No, nothing like that. Well then, what is it? Unless you're about to tell me that I've just been feeding your little caffeine addiction here for the past hour and a half just for the hell of it. I hesitated for a moment. I wasn't sure how, or even really if, I could tell her about what had been going on. For one thing, I still wasn't sure what even really was going on myself. Part of me at the time still had the idea that the voices I was just hearing were just in my head. Another thing though was the idea that even if she didn't think I was nuts, what would she know? Of course, she looks like she has been here for a while. Could she know something? Ha! You'll probably think I'm losing it, I said, chuckling nervously. She just looked at me, urging me to spill it. See, I've been hearing these weird noises from under my house. Noises? She asked, her face growing curious. Yeah, like, I don't know, like voices. I instantly cringed after saying that, anticipating to look up and see her looking at me like I just told her the sky was falling. Instead, I could see excitement growing on her face. Voices, you say? Under your house? Yeah. You hear anything they say? I thought briefly about the nights I'd hear them scurrying around from underneath me. I thought about how I'd hear them go back and forth about how they'd take me in my sleep.
Feed. Must feed. Eat. Juicy meat. Take now.
I told her this and her brow furrowed, concentrating in thought. Sounds to me like you've been hearing them vermin. I cocked my eyebrow at her. Yeah. They used to have a real bad time with those suckers back in the day, she giggled before adding. If the old stories are true, at least. No, I was the curious one. What do you mean? You mean you've seen them before? Well, not really. Like I said, they were just something Granny used to talk about. You know, one of their little ghost stories to scare us at bedtime. What was the story? I sounded desperate, and I was. If Pamela knew what these things were, and if they were actually real, then she might also know how to get rid of them. Well now, I couldn't tell you exactly where it was they came from, or when they first started shacking up here in Old Willow. Like I said, I only remember what my granny used to tell me about them. She'd always tell me about how they'd live under your house. Said they'd scurry around under the floors, and come night time, they'll start coming out to feed. They don't like the light. Makes them sensitive, apparently. So they nest under the houses and dig around like little moles from one house to another. Wait, I interjected. You said they're vulnerable to sunlight? Yeah. Why? I didn't answer this. I shook my head, a motion for her to continue. Yeah, they like it dark, so that's when they'll come out for feeding. Probably a stupid question, but exactly what do they like feeding on? She smirked and said, anything meaty. They love some man meat, you know? She snickered. I chuckled nervously. I wasn't finding this as funny as she apparently was. Come on, I'm just yanking your chain. You don't believe this junk, do ya? I took another gulp of my coffee. I wasn't sure what to say. Yeah, I'm no believer in ghosts or monsters, despite what I said earlier about growing up in this town, but at the same time, I couldn't shake the horrible feeling that Pamela may not be yanking my chain about this as much as she thinks she is. No, I said finally, but I'd like to ask, say, hypothetically that I did believe you, how would I get rid of them? She cocked her eyebrow, scoffing. Please, humour me. Well, I suppose you could try mouse traps. Maybe lure them out in the sun, let them cook for a while before serving them out at a barbecue. Hell, I really can't give you any tips. Granny never told me how they actually got rid of them. I see, I replied, downing my coffee. My heart had now fallen into the pit of my stomach. What was I gonna do? If even Pamela couldn't help, then who could? I was about to pack up my laptop and head back to the house when Pamela stopped me. Ahem, she said, gesturing to her register. Oh, I replied, chuckling. My bad. How much? She tapped the keys on her register before replying. For all them lattes you downed, your damage is $21.57. I looked in my wallet to see, shamefully, that I only had $25 left, and I still needed to get gas on the way back. I don't suppose you take cards, do you? She smiled and shook her head. Afraid not, darling, she said. I sighed, and I was about to give her the cash when she put her hand out, stopping me. But for a handsome, respectful fella like you, I believe I can let you go. She winked before adding, that is, so long as you agree to take me out to dinner. Oh sure, I replied. Her grin widened. Great. Tonight, work for you? Say round 8? I nodded my head. She then tore off a chunk of the receipt paper and scrawled out her address. I'll see you then, she said with another wink. I took it and packed up my stuff before leaving the cafe and heading for home. On the way, I thought about how I might find some way to get rid of these things, these vermin. I wondered if maybe bringing Pamela over to the house, perhaps armed with something, might get some kind of result. Then I had the idea to bring Pamela over to the house for dinner. I figured, aside from saving money, this might at least give me some measure of comfort. Maybe if they start up again, she'll hear it, and she might be able to help. I spent the rest of the day trying to tidy the house up as much as possible. I remember Connor asking me why I was trying to clean the house, joking that it was a little late for spring cleaning, don't you think? I then filled him in on the situation with Pamela. He immediately started teasing me about picking up coffee shop chicks. Look, it's nothing serious, okay? I just agreed to bring her over for dinner in exchange for some free coffee. Hey, you don't gotta explain it to me, pal, he remarked, snickering. Don't worry, I won't get in y'all's way. I just rolled my eyes and continued cleaning. Almost before I realised it, it was already 7:15 PM. After taking one last look around the house, satisfied that it looked at least mostly presentable enough for company, I left to pick Pamela up from her house using the address she gave me. When I arrived, about 20-something minutes later, she was standing on the porch, waiting. Right on time, ain't ya? She commented as she got in the car. Well, I replied with a chuckle. I'd figure it'd make for a good first impression, right? She responded by giggling. So where are we headed for supper? Actually, I was wondering how you'd feel about possibly having dinner at my place. Oh, she squealed, winking. Plan on whining and dining me in one go, huh? I chuckled nervously and replied, maybe just stick to the dining tonight. What do you say? She snickered before giving me another sly wink. When we returned to the house, I saw that Connor's car was still parked in the driveway. So much for not getting in the way, huh? I thought as we got out. Despite this though, when I went inside, he was nowhere in sight. Connor! I called out. Nothing. I went from room to room, calling out his name. They were all empty, silent. Where is he? I wondered. I guess he decided to go out with a friend too, using their car, maybe. I was about to head back out into the living room to join Pamela when a foul smell assaulted my nose. It was a sharp, overwhelming smell, a dominating miasma. What the hell? God, what is that? In the back of my mind though, I found something familiar about it. Then I realised that it was the smell of something that had just died. Not only that, but something that had just died in the house. Concentrating closely, I realised that it was coming from under the floorboards. That's when I felt a sinister chill climb up my spine. This was the same thing I smelled when I found the... Everything alright? Pamela asked from behind me, causing me to jump a bit. She looked at me with wide eyes, my reaction having startled her. What's wrong, hun? I shook my head and smiled nervously. Oh, it's nothing. Just give me one moment. I need to check something real quick. For a moment she continued looking at me, puzzled, before shrugging and heading into the dining room. I left the room and went out through the front door and went around to the back of the house to the basement. There I found this was indeed where the horrid smell was coming from. Standing up close, I realised the smell was somehow even stronger than I remembered it being before. Whatever it was, couldn't have been dead long. My hand shook as I reached to open the basement door, afraid of what I'd see on the other side. What was it going to be this time? Another animal? A person maybe? That caused another far more haunting suggestion to enter my mind. Will I find Connor in here? Taking a huge breath, I grabbed and threw open the basement door. Immediately I was forced to turn away and retch. It was exactly what I'd feared. Actually, it was even worse than I imagined. There, ripped apart senselessly and cocooned in that dark smelly gunk, was the shredded carcass of my roommate. Just like with the puppy before him, there wasn't a single patch of skin that hadn't been mauled almost beyond recognition. I wasn't able to even fully register the gruesome scene though, before I heard the sounds of scuttling from further back inside the basement. I could hear their movements coming towards me at a rapid pace. Who's there? I called out weakly into the darkness. They continued to get closer and closer, tittering like rats as they scurried along.
He's right here.
I heard a raspy voice hiss from the darkness.
He's right here. We have him now. More juicy meat.
This caused my heart to stop cold. I stood frozen as one of the things finally came into view from the darkness of the basement. It was huge and emaciated, with bones that pushed out against his taut, ghoulishly albino skin. Its face was gaunt and it had dark, marbled, beady eyes, and its mouth was tattered. Its gums fully exposed, bearing tiny, jagged teeth like those of a shark. It was scurrying rapidly along the ground on its equally bony, thin limbs.
Juicy meat. Must feed.
In one motion, the creature bounded from where it was towards me, its claws outstretched, ready to seize me. I broke from my terrified trance just in time to slam the door before it could have me. I felt it crash against the door, and I quickly propped a couple of nearby cinder blocks against it before bolting around like a bat out of hell back into the house. After all but hurling myself through the door and locking it, I stood braced against it, panting frantically. "What happened to you?" Pamela exclaimed, staring at me with eyes the size of serving plates. I just stood there breathless, my heart racing. As well as this, my thoughts were so frantic that I was unable to even make a sound, even to scream. Finally, after a full minute, I wheezed out, Vermin!" She cocked her eyebrow. "Huh?" "Under the house. The vermin. They killed My tongue froze and my heart skipped about 5 beats when I heard and felt a loud knocking from the floorboards. As they got louder and more furious, I realised in horror that they were attempting to breach through the floorboards. I was about to scream for Pamela to rush to the door where I was, but it was already too late. From directly in front of me, a large white claw broke through the floor and snatched her by the ankle. Her jaw fell and she tried to scream, but was only able to let out a choked, gasping sound. 2 more sets of claws then broke through the floor and grabbed her. I tried to rush over to her, but she was gone almost as soon as I got to where she'd been, pulled down below the floor into the basement. I looked down to see a dark, empty hole where Pamela had been standing only seconds ago. "Pamela!" I shouted. "Hang on! I'm coming!" Before I could try and come down through the hole though, I heard the sounds of them scurrying back towards it, and I immediately retracted away and ran to my bedroom, locking the door and pushing the dresser against it. I threw myself into my bed and huddled into a ball, waiting for them to inevitably break down the door and snatch me. Oddly, fortunately, the night passed without this happening. While it was a relief that I'd made it through the night though, I haven't moved from my room at all. I was afraid that one of them would be lingering outside my bedroom door, just waiting for me to try and come out so it can take me like the others. But it looks like now I'm screwed anyway. I know it's only a matter of time before I'm a goner too. I'm scared to move from my bed. Right now it might be the only protection I have, at least until they break out from below to drag me down into the basement, their nest, and feast on me. And I hope you all enjoy the blooper reel, judging by the rumours that surrounds this, while adding that this kind of thing could That night was the first time I heard. As soon as I'd made it back out, I latched the hat. Is that what was going on last? All they do is beep at every little thing that sets it off. All I was able to be... Maybe some pretty girl's been keeping you up. Makes them sensitive. But at the same time, I couldn't shake the... Actually, I was wondering about how do you... Hey family, please be so kind as to throw punch the like button and smack the ass of the subscription button as well. And remember to chokehold that notification bell and then select all. That way you'll receive all notifications each time I upload a new video. And by subscribing, you'll be the first to see all of our new spooky creepypasta stories. a very big thank you to Corpse Child for allowing me to narrate this awesome story. Make sure to check out Corpse Child's Reddit page for more brilliant stories. And be sure to check out the Corpse Child playlist here for more of their stories that I may have already narrated. I would just like to say a very big thank you to all of the authors that I have worked with and all the ones that I will work with in the future. So thank you all, my brothers and sisters. And why not hashtag cryptidsroost in your comments. If you would like to support the channel and help make us grow, I have an account at buymeacoffee.com. You could buy me a coffee with your donations, big or small, to that site. You could also support us at Ko-Fi, which is an alternative to Patreon. Also have an account at BitChute, which is an alternative to YouTube. Or you can support us, donate via paypal.me/cryptidsroost. All relevant links will be below. And don't forget to check out the end screen, see above. That will also list some more videos in my back catalogue. Take care everyone, and I hope you all have a wonderful and peaceful night. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not.